So I am standing in front of an aircraft here that you may feel like you've seen this before, but there's some things about it I'd like to point out to you. First of all, not this particular one, but this can be a Part 103 aircraft. That means no pilot's license, no N number registration, no medical, and they can fully build it for you. Pretty amazing situation. There are other models, but that is the Part 103 model. On the Part 103, there are two factors that might be influenced by that 103. It's a very affordable machine, especially for a helicopter, but for any flying aircraft. This has good pricing on it. It has some significant innovation on it, and I'm pointing up here at where you see this belt behind my hand. And then the company has gone through a significant upgrade from what people knew as the old Mosquito to the XE line, which is what this looks like. Composite body, and the company name Composite-FX gives you a clue to that. And finally, there are hundreds of these flying, so there's a track record out there for it. I'm Dan Johnson talking to Norbert Richter, who is going to now tell me everything beyond what I just said about this aircraft.
It's my pleasure, thanks. So the XE, we have 4 different variants. One of which is Part 103. The other 3 are experimental. All of them have what you see here of the composite structure of the tail boom and fuselage. The variants are made by the change of engine assembly and instrumentation. The drive line is all identical between all of them. The fuel source, we have a 12-gallon fuel tank on the assembly that is integral to the body. For the Part 103, we will plumb that to only accept 5 gallons of fuel.
Okay.
So that's how we become 103 compliant with the same fuel tank on that machine. Right. And one of the frequent questions that we have for our Part 103, you'll see that there's pontoons on it, and the way that we get through that that threshold, the weight threshold, is by using the pontoons, we make it under the Part 103 weight requirement. So 254 is not what we weigh. We weigh 298, an experimental craft without the pontoons. The pontoons only weigh about 10 or 12 pounds, and they're put on the landing gear as you see here, so you're still running the same landing gear. We can weigh up to 314 pounds and still be Part 103 compliant, and we're happy that it turns out that way. We come in at roughly 310, 312.
Okay, so that's the XE. Now, the whole line is the XE line, I believe,
There's an XE line. Well, and so the first machine that we made was called the XE.
Ah, I see, okay.
And that's in 2004 when we went to our first show. It was an experimental aircraft, and it was this model, but it had the Zanzarata, the MZ202 engine, which is the same thing that we use on the XEL.
You're still using that engine, okay.
We still use that engine. And on the XEL, that is the Ultralight variant. It's this body with the Zanzarata MZ202 engine and the pontoons and minimal equipment on the inside.
Right, you just got to watch the weight everywhere. Now,
right.
You can have doors on this as well, on one of these, but not on the one you just described,
yeah,
correct?
Believe it or not, the doors push us overweight.
Well,
so
you're right there on the line.
We're right there on the line, that's right. And so if you were flying with doors, you would no longer be 103 compliant.
Sure. So, okay, in Canada in the middle of winter, maybe you don't want to do that, or my old home state of Minnesota, that might be pretty chilly, but, down here in Florida, who needs doors?
It's actually funner to fly without the doors on.
Is it now?
Yeah. The machine gets particularly slippery when it has doors on.
Oh.
And so when you first get the machine and you're getting used to it, we suggest that you fly without doors, just so that you learn all the inputs that you have. But it can be really slippery with the doors on, and that can work to your advantage sometimes too for cross-country travel. The technical on the composite, it's a monocoque fuselage, and it's vinyl.
Meaning that the body is the strength as well.
That's right. And it is vinyl ester resin over e-glass fiber. And so we use about 5 or 6 different kinds of woven cloth that have different weaves, and those weaves give different strengths in different directions. By the time we put all those together in this form, we come up with a monocoque construction. The tail boom is made separate and bolts to the back of the fuselage. Between the two of them, the whole airframe is, I think, roughly 67 pounds. and then from there, we will use acrylics for our transparencies. We'll use 4130 for steel weldments. We will use aluminum for many machine components, titanium for some of our shafts. The pontoons are inflatable, they're vinyl.
And the design changed from what John Uptigrove first created. It had the same essentials here, but it didn't really look very much like this.
Right. So John Uptigrove, the late John Uptigrove, who was a partner in this business for a long time, redesigned for himself. He redesigned an old Hiller helicopter, and that Hiller is what was his wife coined the term. That thing sounds like a mosquito, and that's where the term mosquito came from. And mosquito, since we were working together for this long, mosquito is kind of ubiquitous to all of these helicopters. However, that's the open airframe air, the Mosquito air that some people come to know. So one of the things a helicopter has to do is take a constant engine RPM and translate that into two different things. It has to translate it to tail rotor RPM and main rotor RPM. And it has to do that for the least amount of cost and for the least amount of weight. So, and we get kind of the best of both worlds with this. So this machine uses cog belts for that transmission reduction, and in that we save a bunch of weight, and it doesn't create as much heat because cog belts work very efficiently, and the instruments that you need in order to hold them together are far less than what you would need for a wet gearbox. Cog belts, like what we use, are just superior technology. They're built far better than they're ever rated to be used, and in that, using the cog belts on our machines is a great advantage because we know that they time out at 5 years. You can't see that these age as they get on, but after 5 years, it's time to change them. It's one of the only timed out parts of our bird until we get to TBO. But the amount of power that can be pushed through them, and for the maintenance that it takes for how they work, cog belts are unbeatable. And so this turbine has a final output of 6,000 RPM at its PTO, and that should ring true if you know about the rest of our engines. Our piston engines also run at 100%. We're running 6,000 RPM. And in that, our drive line works with a centrifugal clutch first. So it's a for lack of better terms, it's a giant go-kart clutch.
Okay.
And at 3,000 RPM, it starts to expand. 4,000, it's fully in 4,200, it's fully engaged. We run at 6,000. Right, so there's a lot of push, right?
There's good pressure all the time.
And the ratio of the gears on that clutch, going back to our Sprag clutch, which is a one-way, like automatic transmission clutch, it brings us from 6,000 to tail rotor RPM. And on this machine, it's roughly 2,675 RPM.
Now that you're talking about the tail rotor.
That's right.
Spins at a much different
volume,
right?
So once we come up with our drive shaft and go to our tail boom, there's a metallic drive shaft going through the tail boom. That will then come up, and we'll do our final reduction. And in that final reduction, we will go from that 2,675 to 590 RPM
590.
at the top of the machine, and 590 on the XET. On the Part 103, it's 540.
Your entire line is a single-seat helicopter. How do you get into this if you're not already a helicopter pilot?
So you get instruction from a certified flight instructor, a CFI, in a two-seat helicopter or more. You could be in an R44, which is a four-seat machine.
Do they translate well? If you learn in that, does it?
They do. They
do.
do.
Because you build part of that training right into your price. Is that correct?
Our price today for the kit without options for our Ultralight, if you were to come here and pick up all the parts and we don't build you crates and there's no shipping and everything, out the door, engine and instruments, is $42,000. Now you have to build the machine.
What if they don't want to put it together?
So for the Part 103, we can build them completely here, and with no options, just the bare bones machine, you can get it out the door for $52,000. $52,000. That's painted and fully assembled and test flown.
Not with a turbine engine, with a different engine, but otherwise this aircraft,
right,
for $52,000, of which $2,000 is an allocation to make sure you get some training. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. There's an asterisk on one of our contracts, and that if you can't supply to us the proof that you've done 10 hours with a CFI, then we're going to charge you a little bit more. And we don't really want that money. And for the most part, people take advantage of it. We want you to spend that $2,000 with an instructor, and for 10 hours in the machine. You're not going to be an expert at flying this machine at 10 hours.
Right. That will not be enough.
No, it will not be enough.
But it will get you all the basics then.
Since roughly 2004, when this model came out, That's when it started becoming notorious, and it's about 500 copies since then.
Yeah.
We have a very good safety reputation. We beg all of our operators to practice their auto rotations. Let's have a situation where we're going to practice our auto rotation. We, in pattern, are going to drop our engine RPMs, and we're going to simulate that we have an engine out.
Just like you do in a fixed wing.
Just like you do in a fixed wing, right. And in that, so for one, I am not a certified flight instructor, so I might garble this. However, within a second and a half, you're going to recognize that this happened, and you need to drop collective. So what you're doing is you're dropping pitch on your main blades, and you're going to take the forward velocity of the machine and the descent through the air to speed up these blades with negative pitch. And believe it or not, as this descends through the air, you're not falling to the ground like a soar cap. This thing will glide because these wings are still spinning, and they're still creating some lift as they're getting energized through your descent.
Well, you become a gyroplane.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But you have to learn how to drop your collective to make sure that you have negative pitch on your blades, then speed up your blades, and as you approach the ground, now you're going to use the energy that's in your blades. You're going to pull pitch,
I see.
and you're going to start pumping air again.
You're storing some energy.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right. This is a 19.5-foot flywheel that the energy that's in it at 100% is almost 17,000 pounds of force. And we can even overspin the head on our way down because there's a lot of safety factor in our machine.
Yeah, because you got a light machine again.
Right.
So the benefits of light come into play for that particular case too then, don't they?
That's right. So the disc loading that's on this machine, as well as the way that the mechanisms work, this machine auto-rotates as if it has high inertia blades on it. And so in that, for the auto-rotating guys, this machine can hover, so there's a height velocity curve that this will do hovering auto-rotations out of, we call it the dead man zone in our height velocity curve. 20-foot hovering auto-rotations, if the pilot is capable, the machine is exceptionally capable. And so there's enough inertia in it to land the machine, flare, land, pick back up, and turn 90 degrees and land again.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
is that right?
And so for helicopter, that can be a big deal because people get nervous as how good can this ship auto-rotate, and ours has a very good reputation.
Tell us how we find out more and get in line to buy one or learn some more about Composite-FX. Where do we go?
Come surf our site at composite-fx.com, and you'll see our 4 variants, and there's various options that we have and lots of reading material. Go to YouTube and look up Mosquito XE, and you'll see that there's hundreds of hours of enthusiast videos that are on the web. And hopefully you'll learn something about our machine. Give us a call. We'd love to answer all your questions.
Sounds great, Norbert. Thanks for talking to us today. Find more about the aircraft at the address Norbert just gave you. Find more about this and lots of other affordable aviation on BuyDanJohnson.com. Thanks for joining Norbert, Richter, and myself here in Trenton, Florida.
Thanks, Dan.